And that's the magic of lettering. Like, it's infinite. People that are inspired by what I do, that follow my courses, get the result, and then make money doing what they love. It's just the best.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sketchwave, our weekly show where we talk all things Procreate and digital art, because we are all Procreate tutors here on YouTube and Instagram. Because today I'm not only joined by the one and only James Julier, but I'm also joined by Aurelie Maron. I believe that's the right way of doing it. I tried my best with the accent on there as well. Thank you so much for joining us for a deep dive today. How are you? How has your week been?
I'm very well. Feeling a little bit better after doing a very intense challenge for the entire month of October, and definitely less busy. So yeah, I'm very good. Thank you.
Awesome. That's something we are definitely going to touch on because it was an awesome series. James, how has your week been before we get started?
Yeah, pretty good. Just catching up with some work. It's bitterly cold here at the moment, isn't it, in the UK? We're just, touching base on the weather front. So obviously we're at opposite ends of the spectrum to each other here. But yeah, it's been a good week. Just catching up with stuff. How about yourself?
I think the cold weather has inspired a few of my tutorials designs that I've made this week. So I've got some nice snowy pieces coming up on YouTube and Patreon. So yeah, nicely inspired by the cold weather. Let's get straight into the deep dive. As always, we've got a load of questions we want to get through. And my first one would be, Aurelie, if you could introduce yourself to the audience and explain who you are as a digital artist and what it is you do.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm Aurelie, and I'm a lettering artist. So that's how I would describe myself. I am passionate about Procreate, anything lettering, typography. At the very start, I'm a graphic designer, but I kind of pivoted during COVID and now call myself a lettering artist. So I focus more on just doing lettering project, custom logo types and stuff like that. But yeah, that's who I am, what I do. I work for myself. I am working with my sister as well, so we work together. That's our business, and yeah, that's what I do.
Very cool. We'd like to know a lot about you, so we're going to first of all ask you about your sort of early experiences with art. So, where did it all begin? How would you describe your relationship to art when you were just a child?
So yeah, when I was just a child, I think I was already quite passionate about art and anything creative, anything about like drawing, making stuff, painting. I've always loved drawing. I think from like the youngest age, I was already drawing on paper, and everybody was just kind of like amazed at what I was doing because I could draw things that people could recognize when I was very young, and people were like, "How do you draw? Can you draw that?" It's crazy. So yeah, I've always loved drawing, that's for sure. And I guess I started loving anything design related, anything lettering, without even knowing it was a thing. So I was super young and I was already observing packagings and remembering logos and redrawing them and collecting little logos as well, like little stickers, packaging that I liked. And then one day I realized that it was an actual job because my uncle is a graphic designer himself. And I was like, this is so cool. That's what I want to do. I want to draw for a living, be creative for a living. And I guess that's how it all started. Then studied at university, studied a Bachelor of Digital Media, majoring in graphic design. And yeah, the rest is just history, I guess.
Super. So you touched on the education side of that. So, I mean, how does it work? Sorry, where did you grew up in? Just describe that to us. Sorry,
in
again.
New Caledonia. So I was born in New Caledonia. I speak French, that's why I have an accent.
Yeah.
But I moved to Australia in 2010. That's when I started studying at university. So I went to university and studied a Bachelor of Digital Media, like I said. And that's really when I discovered typography and hand lettering, I started like practicing lettering and became really obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But after graduating, I started working as a graphic designer. So I didn't do
Right.
lettering so much. Like I was just doing graphic design work. Worked for an agency for about 2 years. Really did not like it because I didn't really like the 9 to 5. I didn't like that it was super restrictive. You didn't like
Sure.
really creative. So I started my own business in 2014, and
Hmm.
yeah, I've been working for myself since then, just doing client work, and to be honest, not really enjoying it so much. Had I was always like struggling to make enough money. So I was always constantly saying yes to all of the jobs, trying to get as much work as possible, trying to please everyone, to do everything faster and cheaper all the time. And at the end of the day, I was just working more and not earning more. But then everything stopped during COVID because we all
Sure.
know how it happened. And I had literally zero work. So I was like, okay, what do I do? And that's really when I started turning to Procreate
Yeah.
and doing more personal work, which I
So
wanted to touch upon.
that's
But yeah,
really interesting. So did you not use Procreate before that? Were you more traditional or?
I was I was more using Photoshop, Illustrator.
Okay.
That's what I was doing. Like
Yeah.
for logos, that was my thing. I would draw on pen and paper, then scan my drawing, and then vectorize it in
Yeah.
Illustrator. I did discover Procreate. I think it was around 2017. I
Hmm.
started playing with it, but the app enjoyed it a little bit, but I didn't really do much. But that's really during COVID that I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the things that I love, the things that I've always been drawn to when I was younger, which is lettering and typography, and all the things that I had learned at university as well, like all of the things about typography that I had started playing with.
Sure.
I was like, I'm gonna go back to that. And I didn't really know where to start. Like when you're trying to create more work, you're always wondering, what do I do? Where do I start?
Yeah.
And that's where I joined my very first challenge, which was 36 days of type. And that's when I started creating a lot of work. And that's when I used Procreate.
Hmm.
And that was the beginning of everything. I always tell that story, but I did my first challenge, and then after that, so many people reached out. They were wondering what brushes I was using, how I was making my letter forms, how I was doing all of those 3D effects and stuff. So that led me to create my very first toolkit where I was selling Procreate brushes. But
Yeah.
then people were wondering, how do you use those brushes? So I made my very first course. And yeah, since then I've done so much, but yeah, that's how it all began, my Procreate journey.
So on Instagram at the minute, you sit at over 200,000 followers, a massive audience. You sort of alluded to it there a little bit with the challenges, but talk us through that process of growing in your Instagram to where it is today. Because at first, I think for a lot of people, social media can start off as this kind of side thing alongside the hobby and the thing that they love and their career as such. And it sometimes it does take a back foot, I think, a little bit. But by the looks of it, especially looking back at the earlier stages of your Instagram to where it is today, there's the progression in it. I can see in you as a creator has exploded in creativity and your own vision. But at the beginning, how did you get started with trying to grow it to where it is today and build up your community to where you are?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, during COVID, I had 6,000 followers. So I had an Instagram account already. I had a couple of followers because I was posting a few stuff during my journey as a graphic designer. But that's really after doing a challenge, my very first challenge, that I started getting more traction on my social. But I think all comes down to being consistent and just posting regularly. We've all heard that, and just providing value as well. I think that really helps in building more a community and having more people following what you do, and just keeping that conversation, building a community, providing value. But even doing all of those things, you might not necessarily go viral or have a million followers. And I want to really emphasize that it's not the goal. I don't really look at how many followers I get, and I measure my success or my growth with how many people I'm helping. So what I do track is more how many people I've got in my newsletter, how many people are joining my free courses, my paid courses, and all that kind of stuff. So I always want to say that, but you don't want to just put all of your eggs in one basket. So you don't want to just focus on social media. You want to almost use social media as a tool. So it's a tool that you can use, but that's not the end goal. Like my end goal has never been to reach 1 million followers. And I always tell my students, you want to use social media, but you want to try and use social media as a mean to grow your own business, your own platform. And I like to call my website my digital home. So it's my home. That's where I get people to come. So, and I use social media just to bring people in. So whether it's through YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, I always try to almost use social media as a way to display all the things I can do, all of the amazing stuff that you will find on my own website. And really, if I get a lot of views, a lot of followers, that's great. But what matters to me is the conversion, like if one reel gets more people to my website or not. And a lot of the time, which is funny, if I get a video that get 1 million views, it doesn't really convert. But sometimes I post a video that get 10,000 views, but that resonates so much with people that I make sales and I get people in. So really, the number is not really what's most important, in my opinion.
I was scrolling back through your reels. The numbers on them are insane. Like the views, there was a Luca reel that I saw, 1.3 million views on one video. Like, and the numbers are consistent, and then that you get these massive, huge spikes in like a video like that.
Yes, I have to say, with the very last challenge that I did in October, the lettering style challenge, which I host and participate in, I really got a lot of traction on it, a lot of engagement. I think in 1 month, I reached 12 million accounts, individual accounts.
Wow.
Which is insane. Yeah. But yeah, I think I cracked the algorithm about reels. Like I know how they work now, which I'm really proud because I have a course on how to make reels. So amazing. I'm like, it works.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I think it all comes down to the very first few seconds. So if the first 2 seconds, I would say, can be kind of intriguing and make people want to watch the rest, and then the reel needs to be kind of, you don't want to reveal everything from the beginning. So you want to kind of build and slowly reveal so that there's like a big result at the end. And the shorter, the better, the more satisfying the stroke. And it's a lot of little things, but it all comes down to the first 3 seconds. And I've used that method and it works.
I want to expand on that challenge then, because that challenge, I think like you said, I think you really nailed it, because I think, and I'd like you to go into more detail about it, but just as a brief overview, you had a 30+ day challenge, I believe it was, where each day was a different thing. Could you explain it to the audience? And then
yes, of course.
Yeah.
So like I said, I participated in my very first challenge back in 2020 and did a few more challenges over the years, but then I realized, why not make my own challenge and make it lettering related? So for anyone who wants to get better at lettering and learn more about the different style of lettering that you can produce, I was like, I'm going to make a challenge about it. So because there is 36 days of type, but it's very open to interpretation. You just draw 1 letter a day. And I thought, I'm going to make my own challenge where you practice a lettering style every day for 31 days. So for the entire month of October, you're given a list of different words like black letter, serif, sans serif, italic, and things like that. And the goal is to just practice this style for 30 days. So one prompt a day. And apart from that, there's not really any other rules. You can use any medium you want. You can make it as complex or as simple as you want and just post it online. And you post for 30 days and you get a prize at the end if you've done all 31 prompts. But essentially, this entire challenge is really just an opportunity to practice and also put your work out there in like a community and get feedback, get more exposure. And yeah, I did this challenge in 2022, so that was 2 years ago, and I didn't think it would pick up. I thought, oh, I'm just going to do that. I'll do it for myself. And if a few people wants to join, great. If not, it's okay. But it really picked up. I had so many people joining. So I did it again last year. And then this year I did it for the first time. And I think this year was the biggest year. I had so many people joining, so many people telling me how much they enjoyed this challenge because it really gave them an opportunity to produce the work. Because that's really what I believe in. I think if you want to get better at what you do, you need to do more of the thing that you want to do. And it's very difficult when you don't have a reason for making work. Whereas with the challenge, you can really have this incentive, and you kind of have to do it, and everyone's doing it, so you have this help as well. So yeah, that's the challenge, and I planning on doing it again for the upcoming years, and next year I'm planning on making it even bigger. So if anyone wants to join, it definitely more than welcome to.
We will leave, of course, links to all of everything we speak about in today's show will all be linked in the description down below, so you'll be able to check out everything. But going back to the more recent challenge, you tied it in a lot with film titles. For example, the one with Luca did so well. I saw the Joker one earlier on as well. That one was awesome. Like the blurry cards in motion in the screen as well, and just the text. When I first found your Instagram and it came across my feed, I think it was some of the more metal sort of signs, or very American style signs with the neon strobe inside it. And they were so engaging the second I saw them, because I love neon designs anyway. But the way you do it, you've got such a craft with creating the whole design as such as well, and integrating it with the films as well, the color palettes. I think that's where it did so well, because I think each time you posted it as well, potentially Luca is someone else's favorite film. Then you've got the Joker and so on, and all the Tintin I saw as well. With that one was beautiful, by the way. It was like a lighting from below. It was awesome.
Thank you.
The every single time I think somebody would have been engaged with that in a different way, going, I love Luca. What are we creating here? And then seeing you produce your design as well, and marrying those two interests of the film and Procreate as well at the same time. It's awesome. I was scrolling back through your Instagram, and I think there's one thing that's really apparent is you've got kind of blocks almost of periods of time throughout your kind of journey. At the beginning, at the very, very beginning, I went all the way back to 2017. There are black and white, a lot of kind of very mono in terms of the color palettes, and focusing quite heavily then on the actual typography themselves and the lettering. And then you get into a period where you then start to flourish with the color, and I think the challenges as well. And there's periods, for example, where I can see you did a whole set of letters and designs, but they're in like the same palette kind of range of sort. And then you carry on scrolling closer towards the present day, and then you'll go into a whole different color palette and style range. Do you think that's something that has helped you as a creator to refine your skills, that kind of just forgetting about the color palette maybe, and just doing the artwork and the actual lettering and going from there?
Absolutely. This is a really, really great question, and I'm going to try my best to answer it. So when we want to make art, when we want to make any type of art, whether it's lettering, illustration, whatever, it's very scary to stare at a blank page. It's extremely scary to have so many options, so many things that you can do, and have pretty much limitless opportunities and options of things to do. So the reason I do a challenge as well is so that I can put restrictions on my work. So I can almost give myself my own brief. So if I was a client, I would get a brief from a client. They would tell me, I want this in this color palette with this style. But when you're creating work for yourself, you don't have that. And having a challenge can give you that those brief, those restrictions. And we might think that having more restriction is going to limit you, but actually gives you more freedom, because you're focusing on one thing. You have those limitations, but then you have to work with that. And that's why every time I do a challenge, I try to give myself more restriction and choose a theme. And that way I don't have to overthink. So I would, for example, say to myself, I'm only just going to use one color palette, or I'm only going to do logos, and I'm only going to do like a vintage style. Or like this year, my goal was to try to give as much personality to my lettering, to try to infuse the personality of the character with the lettering, and then add colors that would reflect that. So my goal was to experiment with colors and expressive lettering. So because I had to work with that, I didn't spend any time trying to find ideas, trying to come up with things to do. I knew what I had to do. So every day when I was looking at the prompt, looking at my blank canvas on Procreate, I knew what I had to do. So that really helps. And it's a little bit crazy to think that limitations equals freedom, but it's actually really helpful when you're dealing with the blank page. And also having a theme, like I get a lot of questions, how do you choose a theme? How do you know what to do? Because that's another thing, like you have to choose your restriction, which is another thing that is difficult. But like you said, for example, Luca, I knew that it was quite popular. It's quite a popular movie. So I was like, oh, this is going to please people. So I also choose things that I know are kind of trendy at the moment. So I know it's going to work. So it's a little bit of a mix, like doing what you love, what you enjoy, because obviously these were all movies that I did and all movies that I enjoyed, but also movies that I knew people tended to like, popular movies. So it's a little bit of a mix, like trying to find things that you enjoy doing, that you're passionate about, and things that your audience is going to like. So kind of like jumping on a trend. But yeah, having those restrictions is really what's helped me develop my style and really get better at what I do. So that's why every time you scroll back into my feed, you'll see different stages. Like one year I was playing with like vintage logo types and trying to make my logos look vintage and old. The year before I did book covers, and this year I did movies. But yeah, every time I'm like trying a different style with restriction, like a specific color palette, a specific style. So yeah.
Awesome. And just before I bat it back to James for his next question, can you just elaborate a little bit on the amount of work that you go through with these challenges? Because every single day for the challenge, you post your work for that day's prompt. Every single video is just beautiful. The editing on it is fantastic. The design, we're forgetting the actual art itself as well, is absolutely beautiful. And the time it would take to create that as well. I mean, the work, I envy your workload, your hard work with that challenge, because it looks like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, I'm not gonna lie. But also, during the entire month of October, I didn't do any other work. So that was all I did. So because that's another thing I want to maybe touch on, it's digital products. So because I'm selling digital products, I can take a month off during the year to focus on my own work. So during the entire month of October, I said to all of my clients, I am not working this month. I'm taking a holiday. So I like to call it a holiday because it's work that I do for myself. And it's like I never felt like it was hard work. It was work for me and work that I enjoy doing. Like I love drawing letters. I love making logos and playing with colors and experimenting with new techniques in Procreate. So the entire month of October, even though it looks like I did a lot of work, I didn't really feel like I was working that much because I was doing something I enjoyed and I was doing it for myself.
I
And
love that.
yeah, doing a challenge has so many benefits that I will keep doing it and I will keep putting in the work. It helps me improve my skills. It helps me experiment with different things, but also the visibility is incredible. Like I've reached 12 million accounts in 30 days. So you can imagine I sold more product, I sold more courses, and now I have so many people, new people in my following that might potentially buy more courses, more brushes, but also I get visibility for client work. So I already got requests for logos and stuff like that. So you can imagine that it was worth the amount of work. And also I don't work just on my own. Like I have my sister who works with me. She was the one posting everything. She helped me with
Cool.
the caption and all of that. So
Helps.
it might look like I'm doing a lot, but
Yeah.
I have a team.
Awesome.
That's cool. Just in terms of your workflow then, so you say you run courses. I mean, how easy do you find it to go from the kind of traditional mediums of sort of sketching in traditional ways to then using sort of digital formats like Procreate? Is that a workflow that you find that you're able to help people with on the courses? And have you found that a seamless transition from traditional to digital? How does that go for you in the process?
Yep. So I do teach all of my process in all of my courses, but yeah, I do love traditional media still. But well, I love drawing on paper when I'm in the ID generation stage.
I saw this in your latest YouTube video.
Yes, I just love that pen and paper interaction and the fact that you can't really undo and everything is in front of you. You can't just delete anything. So that's what I use whenever I'm like brainstorming and writing down all of my ideas and doing just little very rough sketches. It's not pretty at all, but it's just like a brain dump and I just put everything on paper. And then I like to take a picture of that, take a photo with my iPad and then move on to Procreate, where I'm still going to be sketching, but this time digitally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a process that I do teach in all of my courses, and I go over all of those steps of the process. But I think there's no right or wrong. Like I know a lot of people that go straight to the iPad, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. You could do that brainstorming in the iPad for sure.
I mean, when did you start actually producing digital work? I mean, I presume you did a lot more of traditional work originally. At what point was it in your journey that you discovered the digital side of things?
Well, that was at university.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I would say I kind of always loved digital. I was using Photoshop when I was 18 and it was just like playing, editing photos. So I've always loved anything digital. And when I discovered lettering, I was doing it by hand. However, like I kept doing that on the paper. Instead of using Procreate with layers, I was using tracing paper. So draw something, trace with tracing paper to make modification, and then retrace on top of that, make modification. So it's almost like the same process as the digital process, but obviously with traditional media. But yeah, then once I had my final artwork that I liked, I would vectorize it in Illustrator. But then I discovered Procreate, and I think I would never go back to anything else. Like I just love how easy it is to refine your letter form, to add layers, to just grab one letter form, copy it, and just reuse bits and pieces. It's just so easy. It's such an easy and smooth process that I just wouldn't.
Very cool. It's interesting. Have you tried to start a project entirely in Procreate from the very beginning, or has it just not worked the same way when you've attempted that?
I have sometimes. I guess it depends on the project, but I do love just jotting down ideas on paper first and then move on to Procreate. That's
Very
my
cool.
favorite.
So, would you say there's been a highlight in your sort of journey or career so far? Has there been a real kind of, point at which something that you can really look back on? And I think there's been a real positive point.
Yeah, well, I had a big pivot in my career after COVID when I started doing challenges and started creating my brushes, my courses, and I wasn't sure I was gonna keep doing that. Like I didn't know if it was gonna work or not, and it did, and I ended up now making more money than I used to when I was doing client work. But I think for me the biggest highlight has always been seeing my students getting results and
Yeah.
them telling me, "Oh, you've changed the way I do things now. So you've helped me kind of do the same thing, and you've helped me get better at what I do, but then do the work I love for a living and make money of the things I enjoy doing."
Yeah.
And that's for me, that makes it all worth it. Like all of the hard work that is involved makes it all worth it to get this type of feedback. People that are inspired by what I do, that follow my courses, get the result, and then make money doing what they love. It's just the best.
Very cool.
Love
I mean,
that answer.
I was going to go on and ask, what keeps you motivated? How do you stay motivated? But I think maybe that's a large part of it then, is it then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what keeps me motivated.
Yeah.
That's my goal, to just help as many people as possible do the same thing. Because to be honest, like I was stuck in a rut for so long. Like I was trying to do as much work as possible, thinking it would make me more money, and just doing client work, trying to please my client all the time. When in reality, I just wanted to do the things I loved. And
Yeah.
it's not less work, but it's work that I enjoy. And I never wake up in the morning feeling like, oh no, I have to go to work. I'm always excited
cool. Yeah.
to go to work and do the things I do every day.
So
I
where
think
do
it's
you
one thing is sorry, James.
go on? No, it's fine. You go.
No, I was going to say I think it's one thing as creators we should never forget almost is that kind of reach. It's the pick me up that some people needed in their day, whether they're following a YouTube video or following your course or anything that we create. The positive impact of it. I guess to a degree, maybe sometimes we never fully see the ripples when they get to the tide as such. We see the initial ripple, but how far that takes them, as you said, like changing of their processes, how they look at art in general, how they look at lettering. And that all stems from the course that they took from you. I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah,
that
very much.
you can have so much impact and change in
Absolutely,
people
yeah.
and guide them on a path that maybe they didn't even know that they were capable of or was in their realm of possibility. And your courses help with that massively. And I think that's really inspiring. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you obviously inspire so many other people, but and I understand where you get the motivation from. That actually gives you the motivation. Where do you get your ideas and your actual inspirations from? Then, is there, do you pick other people's brains, or do you just meditate and they just come to you, or do you have a process for that?
Yes, I do have a process for generating ideas and finding
Yeah.
inspiration. I find inspiration everywhere. You've probably it's probably what everyone always answers. You can find it in books, in movies. I love to do packagings, old retro sign, like actual vintage sign, like the course that I'm doing. But my tip is to keep a library of ideas. So every time I find something that I like, so it can be something just that I don't know why, but I'm attracted to it. I think this is cool. There's something, I save it. So either I have a folder of images on my laptop with all of the things that I like, all of the images, or what I have as well is a little notebook where I write any ideas. So every time something crosses my mind, I write it down. And that's so important because I always say that, but if you don't write it down, you will forget. Like even if you think, oh no, I'll never forget that, you will. So
Yeah.
I have my little list of ideas. So I call that my little ingredient list. So every time I have an idea for, it can be the smallest thing, like I want to add like a flower with like a little star in the middle. So I write that down. Or I want to use a color palette that has blue and red because I have seen that somewhere. I write it down. And then when I'm doing a new project, a new artwork, and I'm stuck, I can go back to that list and kind of
Yeah.
pick and choose the ingredients. And that's my tip to
Really
always
useful tip. Yeah.
a library of things to find inspiration. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's awesome. For someone like myself who's not in any way educated in typography and lettering in any way, I think the way you do it in terms of, because I think that lettering to a degree feel quite restrictive, because I guess over time, is that how many times can you reinvent a particular letter, for example? But I think the way that you do it with your style, where it's not so much black and white and the lettering itself and creating the actual font to a degree, it's the digital art that you apply on top of that as well. It's that, like you said, all the things that Procreate can do, all the wonderful like blend modes and effects that you can create. Do you ever feel like lettering can be restrictive, or is it, being that is your speciality, is it just something that you're just happy and comfortable with?
I would say it's the complete opposite. I think lettering is just this thing that will never run out of new typefaces, of new ideas for making letters. And that's the magic of it. But yeah, you're right. It's almost like two different disciplines, like the lettering and then the digital effect that I add afterwards. And I always say that, like, you want to make sure before you add any type of colors, effect, shadows, highlights, you want to make sure the lettering is spot on. And I always encourage my students to go back to the classic typefaces, like the one that we all know and recognize, and making sure you can master that, you can understand that, and you can redraw that before you add any type of embellishment or make any type of crazy modification. But those embellishment and crazy modification, they're infinite. Like there's endless possibilities. And that's where your own style comes in. Anyone has their own style and anyone can make their letter forms look unique to them. And that's the magic of lettering. Like it's infinite. And once you have that, you can then play with all of those effects, which I love to teach as well. But I think, yeah, they're two different disciplines almost.
I love that. So we are in November. We're getting close to the end of 2024. Looking forward to 2025 and beyond potentially. What is it you want to achieve then next year? What is it that you've got on the horizon, without giving away too many secrets of what you've got planned? But
I have so many plans. It's so funny because 2 days after I had finished my challenge, my lettering style challenge, I was already thinking about the next year's challenge. So I have some...
It's the curse of a creator, isn't it?
Yes. I'm planning on making my courses even bigger and better. So every year I run digital product secrets and lettering style secrets. So 2 courses where you learn to find your style and then make digital products that you can sell online. I want those courses to be even bigger and better. So that's the main plan. I also want to do another challenge and make it even bigger and better. So that's the plan for next year. Also, I'm working on writing a book. So that's, I've put it out there so that I have to do it now. But yeah, big plans for next year for sure.
That's amazing. And before we get into my final 2 questions, where is it people can find your courses? What kind of courses do you have available for them?
Sure. So on my website, it's academy.aureliemaron.com. I'll make sure to give you guys the link. I have 2 types of courses. I have all of my lettering courses. So if you're just starting out, you can start there, learn all about lettering, adding embellishments, all of the things that I love to do. And if you're starting, that's perfect. But then I have my coaching courses, which are lettering style secrets, where you learn to put your work out there, share your work in a authentic way, with purpose, and find your style. That's when we participate in the challenge. And then after that, I have digital product secrets, where you use the challenge, you use the momentum, the things that you've worked on during the challenge to create a digital product that's going to help your audience and provide value to your community with your own style, of course. And yeah, that's what I teach. I also have private coaching for anyone who's done all of those courses, where they can then move on to the next step, which is to create a course and build a business out of your lettering. So yeah, anything can be found on academy.aureliemaron.com.
Amazing. As I mentioned earlier, everything will be linked in the description down below. So I've got two final questions for you. My first question out of the two: what advice would you give to a brand new aspiring digital artist, or maybe even a lettering artist? What advice would you give to them at the beginning of their journey?
So that would be the advice that I would give my younger self. So if I could go back in time and like tell myself one thing that I should just keep on doing no matter what, there will be two things actually. The first one will be to share my work online, share as much as possible. Just don't be afraid to put your work out there and be real, be authentic. And then the next very important thing would be to start making passive income, so to diversify your income. And my advice would be to just start selling small products and having them on multiple platforms and having a lot of like multiple products, because you never know what tomorrow can bring. You don't know how much work you're going to get tomorrow. You don't know if you're going to get any work at all. So having that can really like free up some space in your mind and like some time. Being able to rely on a couple of income streams is really, really helpful, particularly when you're working for yourself. So that would be my advice. Share your work and diversify your income stream.
Love it. And my final question, we have to cue the dramatic music at this point. If Procreate turned to you and said you can only use one brush for the rest of time, what brush would it be?
It wouldn't be a problem, because I don't think you need 1 million brushes to create any artwork. You can just use one and you'll be fine. And if I had to choose, for a long time it was my sharp chalk brush for my chalk lettering toolkit. But now I'm quite obsessed with my detailer brush from my whimsical lettering toolkit. I could use just that and I would be fine.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Aurelie, this has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah, really cool.
So cool to dive into all these different worlds of Procreate, whether it's tutors on YouTube like the two of us, or it's lettering, or everything else that we're going to try and explore with the show. It's honestly, it's so fascinating and truly amazing to speak to you. I really appreciate your time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
As I mentioned, we'll leave links to all of your socials in the description down below. So if anyone wants to crack on with all of those courses, again, they'll be linked in the description. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Sketchwave, and we'll see you in the next one.